If you opened your bank account this morning and saw a strange deposit label like TREAS 310, SSA, or SSI, you are not alone. And for a lot of seniors, that moment can feel both confusing and alarming. Is it your regular Social Security payment? Is it a back payment? Is it from the IRS? Or is it something you need to worry about right away? What many seniors don't realize is that these short deposit codes can look mysterious, but they often tell an important story about where the money came from and why it landed in your account, and this is where things get interesting. The same numbers and letters that seem harmless at first glance can mean very different things depending on whether the payment came through Social Security, the U.S. Treasury, or another federal agency. Lately, more beneficiaries have been paying closer attention to these labels because so many federal payments now move electronically instead of arriving by paper check. According to the Social Security Administration, Social Security and Supplemental Security income benefits are paid electronically, either through direct deposit to a bank account or through a direct express card. According to the U.S. Department of the Treasury, federal payments are generally delivered through electronic funds transfer, which means banks need a description line to identify the incoming payment. That is why seniors may suddenly notice codes they never paid attention to before. The money may be normal, but the label feels unfamiliar. And once people start seeing a code like TREAS 310, curiosity kicks in immediately because it sounds technical, official, and just vague enough to make anyone wonder whether something changed. Let's start with the one that causes the most confusion: TREAS 310. In plain English, TREAS 310 usually signals that the deposit was sent electronically through the U.S. Treasury. The important part here is that TREAS 310 is not a benefit category by itself. It is more like a processing label tied to a federal payment moving through the Treasury's payment system. According to Treasury guidance for direct deposits, the Treasury handles electronic federal payments, and banks display description codes so the deposit can be identified on statements. So, when a senior sees TREAS 310, that does not automatically mean one specific program. It tells you the payment came through the Treasury's ACH system. That's why one person may see TREAS 310 connected to a government benefit, while another person may see a similar Treasury code tied to a tax-related payment instead. And this is the part many viewers don't realize. TREAS 310 is broader than Social Security alone. According to IRS payment processing guidance cited by the Taxpayer Advocate Service, deposits marked IRS TREAS 310 can refer to a tax refund, a tax adjustment, an economic impact payment, or other IRS-related distributions, such as advanced child tax credit payments from prior programs. In other words, if you see TREAS 310 in your account, you should not instantly assume it is your monthly retirement check. You need to read the full deposit description carefully. If the line mentions IRS, that points in a different direction than a line tied to Social Security. This is where things get interesting because the same TREAS 310 core code can appear in different contexts, and that's why seniors should always compare the deposit amount, timing, and description with what they expected to receive. Now let's talk about the label SSA. When beneficiaries see SSA in a bank statement, it generally points to a payment associated with the Social Security Administration. That can include retirement benefits, survivor's benefits, or disability benefits. According to the Social Security Administration, these are often grouped under what SSA calls RSDI, meaning retirement, survivors, and disability insurance. Those are different from SSI, even though people often mix the two together in everyday conversation. So if your bank statement shows SSA, that usually suggests the payment is connected to the main Social Security benefit system rather than the needs-based Supplemental Security Income Program. The exact wording can vary from bank to bank, but the bigger meaning is that the payment is likely coming from Social Security's benefit structure and being delivered through Treasury's electronic payment network. SSI, on the other hand, stands for Supplemental Security Income, and that is a very different program, even though it is managed by the same agency. SSI is not the same as Social Security retirement. It is a needs-based federal benefit for people who are older, blind, or disabled and have limited income and resources. That means someone can receive SSI, Social Security retirement, or in some cases both, but they are not interchangeable. According to the Social Security Administration's payment schedule, SSI is generally paid on the first of the month, while Social Security retirement, survivors, and disability payments follow a separate schedule based on birth date or older filing rules. So when a bank description includes SSI, it often helps explain why the deposit arrived on a different day from a standard retirement payment. For many seniors, that timing clue is one of the fastest ways to understand what they are looking at. Here's where the suspense really builds for a lot of people. Some beneficiaries receive both types of payments, and that can make the statement even more confusing. According to the official SSA payment schedule, if a person received Social Security before May 1997 or receives both Social Security and SSI, Social Security is generally paid on the third of the month and SSI on the first. That means one account can show more than one federal deposit line in the same month, each with different labels, dates, and amounts. If you don't know that rule, it can look like a duplicate payment, a correction, or even an error, but in many cases it is simply two separate benefits arriving on their own schedules. This is why checking your My Social Security account and reviewing the exact deposit description matters so much. The label is only one clue. The date and amount complete the picture. So why do these codes appear at all? Why not just write out a full sentence saying, "Your monthly retirement benefit"? The answer comes down to banking systems and electronic processing. According to the U.S. Department of the Treasury, federal payments move through electronic transfer systems that use standardized identifiers. Banks then display short codes or descriptions on statements based on the payment information they receive. In other words, these labels are not designed to scare people. They are designed to process millions of transactions efficiently. The problem is that what works for a computer system does not always feel clear to a human being, especially when you are looking at a phone screen or paper statement with very little room for detail. That is why one senior may see a straightforward deposit name, while another sees a shorter, more cryptic code for what is essentially the same kind of payment. What many seniors don't realize is that the Treasury and Social Security are both involved in the journey of the money, but they do different jobs. Social Security determines eligibility, calculates the benefit, and manages your record. The U.S. Treasury, through its payment systems, actually sends the electronic deposit. That is why a deposit can be clearly related to Social Security, but still show up with a Treasury-style code in your bank account. This is where things get interesting because people often expect the bank line to reflect the agency they know best, but the payment rail behind the scenes is Treasury. According to the SSA, beneficiaries can start or change direct deposit through their My Social Security accounts, while Treasury oversees the broader electronic payment framework used to deliver federal funds. Understanding that split helps explain why labels like TREAS 310 and SSA can seem to overlap. If you spot one of these codes, the first thing to check is whether the amount matches what you expected. If the deposit is your normal monthly benefit and it arrives on the usual day, the code is likely just a routine description. If the amount is higher or lower, then it may reflect an adjustment, a retroactive payment, an overpayment recovery, or another federal deposit altogether. CNBC reported, for example, that some beneficiaries receiving changes under the Social Security Fairness Act would get retroactive lump sum payments deposited directly into the bank account on file with SSA, followed by mailed notices explaining the change. That means unusual deposit amounts do happen, and they are not automatically a sign of fraud. Still, you should compare the amount to your award notices, your bank history, and your online SSA record. The second thing to check is timing. According to the Social Security Administration, SSI generally pays on the first, while retirement, survivors, and disability benefits are usually paid on the third or on the second, third, or fourth Wednesday, depending on the beneficiary's birth date and filing history. That means the day the money arrives can tell you a lot before you ever call the bank. If the payment lands on the first, SSI becomes a strong possibility. If it hits on your normal Wednesday pattern, it may be your regular Social Security benefit. If it shows up outside that pattern, then you should look more closely at the full descriptor and your notices. And yes, it is always smart to sign into your SSA account and review recent payment information if anything looks unfamiliar. Sometimes the easiest explanation is also the right one. The code looks strange, but the date tells the truth. The third thing to check is the full wording around the code, because that is often where the answer is hiding. A statement might show TREAS 310 by itself, or it might include extra wording pointing toward SSA, SSI, or IRS. According to Treasury's Tax Refund FAQ, identifying information in ACH records helps financial institutions recognize the type of payment. According to IRS-related guidance from the Taxpayer Advocate Service, IRS TREAS 310 can point to refunds or tax-related payments, so the exact letters surrounding the code matter. If you only glance at the 310 part, you may miss the bigger clue. This is also why seniors should review the bank's detailed transaction screen, not just the shortened mobile app view. Sometimes the expanded description makes the deposit much easier to understand. A few extra seconds of checking can save a lot of worry. Now, none of this means every unfamiliar deposit should be ignored. If the amount does not match your expectation, if the timing makes no sense, or if you get a deposit after reporting a death or major status change, you should contact the proper agency. Reuters has long reported on the federal government's push toward electronic payments for benefits and on the importance of direct deposit safeguards, especially for older Americans who depend on those funds every month. In other words, these systems are built to be routine, but you still need to monitor them. Keep an eye on your bank statement, keep your direct deposit information up to date, and never assume that a code you do not understand is either definitely harmless or definitely dangerous without checking. The goal is not panic, the goal is verification. Another important point is that banks do not all display deposit descriptions in the same way. One institution may show a fuller description, while another may shorten it into a compact code that feels almost unreadable. That is why two neighbors receiving the same type of federal benefit could compare statements and see different-looking labels. The underlying payment may be the same, but the bank's display format is different. According to the SSA, beneficiaries should keep track of their payment information and can verify or update direct deposit details through their online account. So if you are ever unsure, do not rely only on what the tiny bank app line says. Compare it with your SSA account, your official notices, and the regular payment calendar. What many seniors don't realize is that the statement line is just the last step of a much bigger payment chain. So let's bring it all together clearly. TREAS 310 usually means the money was sent electronically through the U.S. Treasury. SSA usually points to a Social Security Administration benefit, often retirement, survivors, or disability. SSI points to supplemental security income, which is a separate needs-based program with its own payment rules and schedule. The code itself is not usually the story. The combination of the code, the amount, the date, and the source description is the story. According to the Social Security Administration, according to the U.S. Department of the Treasury, and according to IRS payment processing guidance, these identifiers are part of how federal deposits are routed and recognized in bank systems. So if you notice one of these labels, the most important thing to remember is this. In most cases, these are normal identifiers for legitimate federal payments, not signs that something is wrong. Check your SSA account, review your bank statement, details carefully, and if something still does not add up, contact your bank or the agency directly.